Hello, friends. Bill Hobson here. Welcome into the Church Pew Sports podcast, where pastors talk sports and life and faith. It's great to have you with us. We don't produce every episode of the podcast in video form. They're all in audio, of course. But this is a special occasion because of a special guest. We are joined by a member of the Broadcasting Hall of Fame, sportscaster extraordinaire. I think the best sportscaster of this generation, Dan Patrick. He's going to be talking with us about his new book. We'll cover a lot of the current headlines in the world of sports, and we'll even dig into Dan's childhood and his rather unique encounter with the offering plate in church. Joining me on the podcast are two pastors, Pastor Paul Miller, who's the executive pastor at Hopevale Church in Saginaw, Michigan, and the senior pastor from Hopevale is Josh Pardee. Now, the reason I set the scene for you is because we're going to join the conversation with Dan in progress. He has just checked in with us on Zoom, and whenever we have a first-time guest with us, Paul has an icebreaker question to ask. That's where we will start our conversation with Dan Patrick. Before we do that, could I ask you to do two things? Number one, subscribe to this YouTube channel for Hobson Media. And number two, subscribe to the podcast, Church Pew Sports, wherever it is you get your podcast. And Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast, we're there. And we'd love to have you with us because not only do we talk sports and life and faith, but we do it all in a very family-friendly way. So you can listen in the car and never really have to worry about turning down the volume when those words come out, right? So enjoy the conversation with Dan Patrick as we pick things up, asking him the question we ask all first-time guests.
Dan, this is Paul. We have a question that we ask every first-time guest on the show as a way to help, just in case there's anybody that listens to the Church Pew Sports podcast that doesn't know who you are. I don't know who that would be, but just in case, we ask the same question. So here you go. Okay. We would like to know what are your irrational sports loyalties? Like, what are the teams you personally, any sport, any level, that you follow in ways that other sports fans go, that guy's a little fanatical? So who would that be for you?
Well, the fanatic in me is gone. I don't root for anybody. I don't root for any teams. I root for a story because I can tell a story over and over and over. But I never wanted to have a team, because then if you rooted for that team's rival, then you would think that I was being biased or I was going out of my way to say something negative about your team or positive about mine. And when I got to SportsCenter, I decided that my fandom was going to be put to the side, and it's remained to the side.
That's fascinating. So like in a conversation like this, where you have a couple Michigan fans and an Ohio State fan, someone's getting alienated when we ask you about the Big Ten. I get it.
Yeah.
Does that make it harder or easier from your chair to have a team that you care about or don't care about?
Makes it easier. But the one thing I do miss is that feeling that you get when it hurts or when you have that highest of highs. I don't have that. I can try to feel what you're feeling when Michigan beats Ohio State, or, Alabama wins a national title, or Kansas City wins the Super Bowl, or the Bengals lose the Super Bowl. I miss that feeling, and it's hard. You can't replicate that. But that's the sacrifice I had to make to do this job the way I think it should be done.
Well, you have done it so well for so long. And as somebody who's involved in broadcasting for about 35 years, you're one of my heroes. So thank you for taking a little bit of time to be with us here. Let me officially introduce Dan Patrick, who has put together a book with the longest title in book history. It is The Occasionally Accurate Annals of Football, the NFL's greatest players, plays, scandals, and screw-ups, plus stuff we totally made up.
Yeah.
Were you at all compensated by the character in the title?
No.
No connection to the length of the book.
No.
To the contract. All
right. I didn't come up with the title. I came up with thoughts. I came up with ideas, opinions, suggestions. But I laugh whenever somebody comes on my show and they have a book title, and I'll be like, Could you made it any longer?
Mhm.
Whatever happened to just, like one word or two words? Now it's got to be, we have to tell you everything that's in the book, and you can read it all on the cover.
Well, let's dive into it and talk about a few of the things that connect the NFL to all of us in the fandom world. And you, of course, have spent so much time immersed in that league when you're with NBC. Take us on to, if you would, the Lombardi Trophy presentation stage. Teach us some of the core rules that you have to go by, and then maybe a couple of instances where somebody didn't know the rules and went off script.
When I was first told I was going to hand out the Super Bowl trophy, and that was Tampa, that was Pittsburgh, and Arizona. Dramatic finish. Arizona, we thought they were going to win. Larry Fitzgerald, great catch, touchdown. Then all of a sudden, it's Roethlisberger leading the Steelers down. 2-minute drill, they win it, and then I have to get on the podium. And one of my bosses at NBC said, whatever you do, don't give up the microphone. I'm going, okay. Like, who's going to grab the microphone? Well, inevitably, somebody grabs the microphone because they think it's their turn. Like, this is live at the Improv, or this is karaoke. Like, I want to let the world know I got something to say. And usually it's an owner. And that's happened twice, where when the Eagles won with Jeffrey Lurie and when the Giants won with one of their owners, they tried to grab the microphone. And if you look closely, when the Giants won the Super Bowl, beating the Patriots, one of the owners grabs the microphone, and I am trying to pull it back. And we are having this tug of war in front of 100 million people who have no idea what's going on, but I'm not giving up the microphone. And my producer was in my ear, and he's saying, don't give up the microphone. And I fought the good fight. I did. I fought the good fight.
That kind of happens in church on Sunday when we have someone on stage, not minus the 100 million part, but everything else. When someone's on stage on Sunday morning and we're interviewing, it's like, yeah, you're not holding this.
Yeah, you do not let go of the mic. You may never get it back again.
Yeah, that's rule number one. I'm senior pastor at our church, and that's we go over that with everyone. Funerals, any sort of gathering where people want to share, you hold on to that mic. You don't let anybody run with it, because you don't know what's coming next or how long you're about to be sitting there waiting for it to finish up.
Well, it's timed out. You have the commissioner say something, and then I get the microphone. I interview the owner, and then usually I'll interview the quarterback. Unless the quarterback is the MVP, then I can do a little bit longer interview. Then there might be one other person, maybe two other people that you have. But there have been moments where Eli Manning won the Super Bowl MVP, but didn't want to accept the keys to the black-on-black Corvette that he won, because that was Chevrolet, and he represented Toyota or Nissan and didn't want to be seen with the keys to the Corvette. I had to yell at him. He left the podium. I'm reading the MVP of this, Super Bowl. It's Eli Manning. They have this blank space there, and then they wrote in Eli Manning. And I'm reading this off. He just won this beautiful black Corvette. It was there on site, and he walks off the podium. I get done reading. I look up and I go, Eli! I had to yell at him to come up, and I go, basically, here's your damn keys. But he won the MVP. So Kevin Hart was trying to get on stage when Philadelphia won. He was inebriated, and I could just hear Kevin Hart with that high-pitched voice, and he's yelling at people. I'm up on the podium with the Eagles, and I can hear him saying, I'm Kevin Hart. I'm Kevin Hart. I'm an Eagle. And I'm going, oh my God, like, what is going on here? And they didn't let him on. I did talk to him later about that. And he goes, yeah, I know. They should have let me up there. I go, no, they shouldn't have.
No, under no circumstances.
No. But I mean, it's you have to do it, and nobody remembers you did it. It's like an umpire or a referee. If you don't remember who did the game, then they did a pretty good job. And my job is just to be seamless, get on the stage, get off the stage, and don't. And I had one mistake. Rob Gronkowski was up there when the Patriots won the Super Bowl. And I said, did you ever think you would have this feeling again? And he said, well, this is the first one that I've won.
Oh.
Other than that, how was my question, Rob?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan, when we heard you were coming on, I actually reached out to my dad, was thinking about just, remembering back to younger days when you were at the mothership, as you referred to it, and all the times we would connect there, and then getting to continue to listen to you and all that. And then hearing you talk about stories and how you're in for the story. So I was asking him, hey, what would be a question you would ask? And so this question is kind of impacted by his line of thinking. But the question is, what story has come out that you feel like we as the general public have completely misunderstood, right? Like narratives get out, they get spun out. Maybe it was something you even would look back and say, man, I wish I would have covered that differently if I could go back now. So what's something that we as the public just have completely gotten wrong?
I don't know if it's gotten wrong, but it was right there in front of me and I didn't see it. And sometimes when it's right in front of you, you don't see it. And that was Mark McGuire with the Andro, and it was in his locker. And Jason Giambi was a friend. And I should have seen it right in front of me that, what does it look like, when somebody's using steroids? And I, Jason joked about it one time. And it was just one of those passing comments, like cycling off. And then I don't know. It was weird. And then I saw, what it was doing to Mark McGuire, where I think he knew what he was doing. He was sort of falsifying records here. Mm-hmm. And he had been banged up. And I think his career was really, maybe coming to an end. And then all of a sudden he got that fountain of youth. And I just didn't question it. I didn't question Lance Armstrong. But I don't know if those are like great mysteries or, we should have spent more time. We did eventually spend far too much time on these topics. And we still are with steroids. I think Deflategate is one that I find really interesting because I couldn't care less if a quarterback wants to doctor the football. He wants it, a little bit more inflated, less inflated, because why don't we let you do that? It's your football for your team, for your receivers, for your running backs. I mean, you go into an NBA game, they take the home basketballs. LeBron will bring over a basketball and say, this is what we're playing with. What's the difference? Brady lied. I think that's the problem. If he would have said, you know what, this is a silly rule, and yes, I liked it a little less inflated, and so do my teammates, so do my receivers, whatever. But, we're always taught, the lie makes it worse because then you got to lie on top of the lie. And I just felt it was unfair to Brady because quarterbacks have been doctoring footballs for a long, long time. Punters been doctoring footballs for a long, long time. Punters get their own ball. Kickers get their own ball. Quarterbacks, nope, can't do it. And I always thought that was one that, it became a trial. Like, they're seizing his phone. Like, there's so much going on here. And you're like, because he deflated a football. And the story got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, it inflated while he's deflating footballs. And I look back on that and I just think, wow, we spent a lot of time on that. A lot of time.
Did you ever have an NFL player just get really irritated with you, get mad at you, maybe in the locker room moment or interview situation?
Oh, yeah. Terrell Owens. We didn't have a good relationship. And I thought he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. I just didn't think that he was a good teammate at times. But, they kept him out. There's certain, you're not supposed to factor in off the field from what I'm told with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But they did with T.O. I didn't think that was fair. Lawrence Taylor, we had a moment where it wouldn't have gone well for me. Alex Rodriguez and I had a moment that wouldn't have gone well. Well, none of them would go well for me. But I show my face. If I say something about you or you have a problem, then I'll make myself available. I think you have to be fair to the athletes because, who's criticized, critiqued more than athletes are? Nobody. That you can do it right to their face. You can write something, read something. And then you know the person who's doing it. Every game, every city you go to, oh, you went 1 for 4. What's wrong? You went 0 for 3. What's wrong? You lasted 2 2/3. What's wrong? You missed the free throw. All of that. And so I understand the sensitivity there. And I just want to make sure that I'm fair to those who I'm covering. That's it. If I'm fair, if you may not like it, but I have to be fair when I'm covering you.
That's really good, Dan. Okay, so speaking of being fair, I love the book because anyone who's a fan of the NFL and wants to laugh a little bit, which we all need to do, this is a book that you need to read. But I have to say I was a little disappointed because I was disappointed by the lack of commentary about instant replay, right? Which is one of kind of my holy discontents in the NFL, right? So I'm wondering, what would you say, like, give us your assessment of the state of just officiating in the NFL. There's a lot of things they're getting right these days, and there are some that maybe they should be doing better. How would you answer that?
Well, first of all, it's not instant replay.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's my big problem is stop saying, it's just replay. I think you need to have an eye in the sky to help these guys on the field because it's really difficult. If you've ever stood on the sidelines of an NFL game and watched it in real time right in front of you, and I said, all right, pass interference? Did he get both feet in bounds? Did he complete the process? There's so much they've added. They keep adding instead of subtracting. Make the game simpler, but they're not. They're making it more complicated. They're making it tougher for these officials. If you have the eye in the sky, then you're going to help them without embarrassing them. I go back to the game with the Rams and the Saints when there was an obvious pass interference, obvious, and even a helmet-to-helmet hit. And you had an all-star cast of officials, I believe, and I don't think anybody wanted to embarrass somebody. And if you had the eye in the sky, then they would have said, hey, you guys are all going to be embarrassed. That's pass interference. How you could look at that and not call something is criminal, malfeasance. It really is.
Yeah.
But I think the more that you can help, I'm not saying everything should be replayed, but I do think you should have if the job is to get it right, then get it right. Not, we don't want to do that to get it right. We'd rather do it this way. Well, no. Now with the advent of gambling, you got to get it right. You now owe it to your fans to get it right. You owe it to the players. You owe it to the game. But the fans who are betting on this, you owe it to them. You can't go into business with gambling and then all of a sudden go, yeah, but we don't want to get all the calls right. Or if we miss one, we miss one. That's part of the game. I think that's disingenuous.
Well, of the three of us here, Dan, two of us are diehard Lions fans, and we know without a doubt that the vast majority of horrendous officiating moments have happened at our expense. Just ask us. I mean, we'll tell you.
Yeah.
In the book, you dive into sort of the futility of the Lions with the haves and the lions, and kind of walking through these. I was going to say these few instances, but it's basically decades long.
Yes, it is.
Streak of just inane play, and those moments where you're like, there's no chance that just happened, but it did. Do you have any words of encouragement for us who are kind of beat down in Lions land?
Well, if I made this point the other day, if you take away the 85 season, the Bears are the Lions.
Thank you.
You got a Bears fan here too.
Dan, I lived in Chicagoland for the last 17 years, and I kept telling people that. And all my buddies were born after 85. I'm like, you have no ground to stand on.
Well, however, that doesn't make us feel all that much more confident.
Well, no, I'm giving you company. I'm giving you company in the same division.
Loves company.
Yes. But if you look back, you had one of the best receivers with Megatron. You had one of the greatest running backs. Like, you've had moments, you just haven't had all of that where it works. It syncs up. And, last year is when I really fell in love with the Lions. I thought they were a playoff team last year. And then they start out, they win 2 games. And then After that, I think they lose 2 games. And I thought that there was something there. Sometimes I root for a fan base, like the Bengals. Bengals have played in 3 Super Bowls. They played 3 of the closest Super Bowls. And I feel bad for the fan base because they were losers. They had bags on their heads, and I'm from Cincinnati. So I'm aware of that. And that's what I root for, a fan base to win. And Detroit would be a wonderful story if those fans won. And just what that would mean for a father or a son or a grandfather, just like the Cubs. They're great baseball fans. And I rooted for the fans, not the team, but the fans, that was the great part of the story.
Did he make us, Josh? How did that work?
How did that land with you guys?
From a therapeutic standpoint, how did that work for us in Lions?
I heard he's rooting for the Lions.
You did? So, you picked that out of there?
He does not root for teams, but
for
fan bases. You and I are a fan base. And
yes.
We've got fantastic support.
Yeah.
If you said the Lions were going to win this year, I would say wonderful. But I never went, haven't the Patriots won enough?
Oh, yeah.
I never felt that way. Sometimes you root against a fan base because they're obnoxious, like Patriots fans. Right. You imagine you grew up in Boston and you went through about a 10 to 12-year period where Red Sox, Bruins,
Celtics,
Patriots, Celtics. Yeah. Imagine a kid who is like 20 years of age, and he's probably going, it's been forever since we won a title. Like, oh, you poor thing. Yeah. What's it been, like 3 years? Man, that's forever. They don't know what hardship is. God, it's been forever. God, we only won that Super Bowl by a touchdown. Man, okay. Yeah.
Dan, in the book, you kind of make some jokes towards the end of the NFL continues to just dominate the sports world. They've got teams, I think, on the moon, and the Atlantic has dried up, and there's a team there.
Sure.
But more seriously, if you were to look out, maybe with kind of 2 timelines of like 12 to 15 years and maybe 25 years, what do you see the NFL heading, and what do you think is in store for us looking ahead at that time?
I don't know if you can have too much. And I'll give you the analogy, and it's not a fair one, but it's the only one I have off the top of my head. We thought you can't, can you give people too much SportsCenter? And, it kept replaying. It'd be all morning long. It'd be the same show.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, nobody's going to watch that. And then they did. They kept watching. We couldn't give them enough SportsCenter. I don't know if you can give enough football coverage. They're going to try, but I think the one thing that I would be worried about or caution people is if you have a gambling controversy, if you have a scandal, and then you lose confidence in the shield, the game itself, an official, just like the NBA was really, really close with Tim Donaghy. And I still think there's more to that story.
Yeah.
I thought David Stern put the lid on that really quickly, kept calling him the rogue official. Well, I get the feeling there could have been a couple more rogue officials. And that's what it follow the money. And if you're making $50 million and I'm an official and I'm making, $2,500 a game, it's just the disparity and the opportunity, and that would be a big concern for me. As far as expansion goes, the cost of expansion, that is it's prohibitive. And then, the value of these teams. Cowboys are $10 billion evaluation. This is big business, gambling, fantasy, and dwarfing all these other, baseball used to be important.
Right.
Now it's a regional sport. NBA can be important, but, feels regional at times. It's just football now it's basically 11 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Maybe 12 months. It feels like they take a month off somewhere just to let you catch your breath. But I don't know if the NFL can eat the NFL. If you can have overexposure, you could have a scandal, something that would turn off the fans. Because as it is now with gambling and fantasy, people are betting on a game just to watch a game. I have friends who go, I can't watch that game last night. I go, why not? I got to put something on it. I go, okay.
Just can't watch it.
Yes. And I, growing up, I gambled, but I couldn't watch a game that I gambled on. These guys now, my fantasy team or, fantasy teams, and everybody's gambling.
DP, 2 weeks ago, we had Armin Katayan on to talk about his Billy Walters book, which eventually somewhere down the line connects Phil Mickelson into his world. But he was talking about this explosion in the world of gambling, and he's considered the most prolific gambler in Vegas history, which I guess is a fairly lofty bit of company to keep. Are we better off as sports fans because all of that is happening? It's sure, from a standpoint of a Church Pew Sports podcast, it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's opening up. Yeah, it's attracting some interest, but it feels like it's opening up a whole lot of potential channels to addiction. And
sure. Yeah.
Just kind of the wrong kind of motivation for being a fan.
And I like how you said, are we better off? And you used the word better. I see what you did there. A lot of times you don't know you have an addiction. Somebody has to tell you you have an addiction. Phil Mickelson has been gambling like this for a long time. At what point did he go, I might be an addict? Did it take this? Did it take a book? Now that it's out there, now you can try to garner sympathy. Hey, I'm an addict. I'm not going to be gambling on the NFL. Good. You shouldn't be. Not at the rate that you were and whatever you were losing. And, you become addicted to just having something on a game. It's not the money. It's you have to have something on the game. Michael Jordan would never play a game of golf without having money on it. You just would, because that's not exciting. That's not fun. That doesn't get me going. And I think people who start to gamble, they don't realize it until you have to do it. You may want to do it, but when you have to do it, that's when you have a problem. And I quit cold turkey. I lost my last bet, $3,300 on a bowl game, and I walked away. And I never placed a bet again. Didn't even, because I know it's in me. That gene is in me, that I could do this, and it'd be tough to get off that train. And I think there's going to be a lot of people in 5, 10 years, 15 years that we're going to look back and go. And I know that they'll run these disclaimers. Hey, got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLE. Okay. We covered our rear. Yeah. Hey, I put a warning label on the side of those Camel cigarettes there. I mean, come on. Yeah. We also created nicotine to make it addictive. Well,
but don't use it.
That's what gambling is. It's nicotine for these people who don't know what it is until you can't. Now you're in trouble. And that is a big concern there. And I've said this on my show because we do have DraftKings as a sponsor. And I tell people, you're never going to beat the house. You're never going to. But if you want to do something, it's like when I play blackjack, I would play $5 hands. That's all. I didn't need to play 50 or 100. I've been around guys recently that were playing $25,000 hands, and they had 4 hands going at the same time.
Wow.
And they weren't enjoying it. I even said to one, I said, "Are you enjoying this?" And he goes, "Yeah," but there was no joy. He was just, I have to have that thrill that's there. And I think people will be sheeps. And, you're led to slaughter, and all of a sudden, and you always think that, hey, I'll just double the bet. I would lose on Sunday, and I go, I got Monday night. I'll just double it up. And next thing you know, you're really in trouble. Now you're down. Now that's when bad things happen.
And yet the NFL has enmeshed itself with gaming. Now, the Lions are currently without a receiver because he placed a bet while on team property. Had he been over at Walmart's parking lot, he would have been just fine. I don't understand, DP, how the NFL can have its cake and eat it too, but it clearly is trying to do that when it comes to partnering with gaming enterprises and at the same time claiming some moral high ground that its players are insulated from all of it. I know that Goodell won't talk about anything with anybody, including I don't think he does a whole lot with you, even though he would be well served to do it because you're a fair interviewer. But is the league living a double life sort of when it comes to the gambling issue?
Yeah. Yes. Because this is the same commissioner who in 2012 said, well, we'll never be in the gaming industry.
Right.
Well, I said it repeatedly, and I'm not Nostradamus. There's certain things I know, and if I do know them, then I pass them on. And that is, once the leagues figured out what their slice of the pie was, they're all going to be gambling. And that's exactly what happened. They all wanted to know, what are we going to make? And then they realized how much money they were. It's like expansion in college football. I kept saying, this is happening sooner than people think. And they're like, there's contracts. They're not going to break the contracts. What did they do? They broke the contracts because the money that's involved in this. Follow the money. The NFL has made, I'd love to know how much they make. They're not going to tell you, but I'd love to know that, or how much the NBA makes, baseball makes. They're all in bed, and they all shouted from the mountaintops that they weren't going to be in the gaming business.
Yeah. So you mentioned college football expansion, right? The CFP expansion. What would be your assessment of college football as an industry with all the change, right? Trending up, trending down. You were talking about who could compete or maybe infringe on some of the NFL's market share or whatever. What do you think of college football these days?
Well, it's embarrassing what they've allowed. I mean, you have grown-ups who don't act like grown-ups, but then the grown-ups want to tell the kids how to act. And the kids can't be greedy, but the grown-ups can be greedy. Well, you can't have it both ways. The kids are saying, hey, name, image, and likeness. It's my name, my image, my likeness. Why can't I capitalize on that? Mm-hmm. All right, you can, but not too much. And then, wait, coaches can leave? They can coach the next season, but we can't leave and play the next season? All right, we'll create the transfer portal. And then all of a sudden you have these grown-ups going, the game has gone to hell. What's wrong with this? There's no loyalty here. No, and neither is with the coaches here. So I just think they have to embrace it and say, we're the AAA version of the NFL. We're going to have 40 schools, and we're going to have divisions, and we'll have like an AFC and an NFC, and we'll let you, we'll have capitalism, free enterprise, make your money. But let's stop kidding the student athlete. They're athletic students, if they're even that. And stop with this, the bowl tradition and all. I mean, stop. We don't live in the dark ages anymore with this. It's real. It's right in front of us. And the grown-ups are the ones that have disappointed me. If I'm a player, I have to stay in college for 3 years in football. I have to. Now I can at least transfer. Now I can at least make some money. And then you'll get this, well, they get a free education. Okay, how about we make them pay for their education then, if, name, image, and likeness. Whatever, let's try to figure this out. But let's not pretend that, the problem is the players. The problem is the chancellors, the athletic directors, the TV executives, not these kids.
And is there an organization that is more outdated and worthless than the NCAA at this time? There's no sheriff in town anymore, so it's just the Wild West.
It's a big building. I've been there in Indianapolis. You could probably rent a 1-bedroom or maybe a studio apartment in New York, and the NCAA could be housed out of there. There can't be a lot of things that are going on right now. Yeah.
Working remotely.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you would say, no, you don't have to come in. You can stay at home, Zoom in. But yeah, the NCAA, unless you hand them documents that say, here's a controversy, here's something going on, the NCAA doesn't act on something unless Yahoo Sports or ESPN says, hey, by the way, you should look at this. Now you can give a recruit what you want to give. Now it's basically what they used to do under the table is above table. And it's like right in front of you.
Yeah.
How much is your NIL? Oh, I'm getting $1 million. I had a coach, prominent coach, who said, you keep saying that everybody is going to capitalize on NIL. I said, yes. He goes, do you think linemen are going to capitalize? I go, yes. If you want to win in college football, you win up front. And these defensive players, look at those defensive players at Georgia. They're winning national titles because you have these guys up front who dominate. And I said, yes. If I'm a billionaire, and I would say, all right, here's $50 million a year. Go out and get what you need. What's $50 million to a billionaire? Right? If I'm Warren Buffett, I mean, how many hundreds of billions of dollars? He's a Nebraska fan. What if he just said, hey, we're going to get back to the Tom Osborne days. Here's $75 million. I want to see a national champion before I die. What's preventing that from happening?
Defense.
Well, and offense, maybe coaching.
But
other than that, they're great fans.
Speaking of college football, right now we are in the middle of Deion just taking over every media outlet, it seems like, and lots of attention happening there. So when you think about Deion's impact and what he's been able to bring to Colorado, do you see him staying there long term? Do you see this as sustainable? Do you see him moving on? And maybe what compels you the most? What is so interesting to you about Deion's story currently at this moment?
Well, he did say God kind of told him to go to Jackson State. I don't know if God told him to go to Colorado. I don't know if God's going to tell him to go to the NFL. I mean, how can you argue with that? If he
it's
says
the trump card in the pastoral world,
these guys play that card all the time.
Yeah, we're used to that.
I hate it. God is busy. He's got to be busy. I just don't know if he's going. He goes to his secretary. What's my to-do list? You have problems in Libya. The Ukraine. Deion wants to know if he should go to Jackson State. Oh, okay. I'll get around to that. Thanks, Mary.
Mary.
Yeah. And I'm going.
She's the secretary.
But I don't know. All you have to do is say, God told me. Okay. Do I think he'll stay? Well, I think he'll stay until his sons graduate. But I don't know what moves him. Everybody's like, oh, make him the Cowboys head coach. Well, the Cowboys are off to a great start. And now all of a sudden you want to, he's ready to go to the Cowboys. People didn't want to hire him to coach in Division I. Now he's ready to coach the Cowboys. We're so phony. We are. Deion's son wasn't a first-round draft pick as a quarterback. Now all of a sudden Mel Kiper comes out and goes, oh, he's guaranteed first-round draft pick. I'm like, wait, what happened here? Wait, he wasn't at Jackson State, but because he beat TCU in Nebraska, he's a first-round draft pick. Like, what are we doing here? I love what Deion's doing because he's taken advantage of the loopholes. There's only one prime. That's why when people say, oh, he opened the doors to other black coaches. And I go, no, there's only one Deion. There's nobody like him in sports. No one. And he is charismatic and he's going to win. And he has taken over college football from a standpoint of, I'm bringing in as many people as I need. And I'm getting rid of all these guys who won one game and the coaching staff that won one game. I'm bringing in my people. And is it sustainable? That's what I want to know. I think they're a year ahead of schedule. I didn't think they had the depth to be able to compete week in and week out. And maybe they do. And that'll be a surprise to me. They have talent. I mean, Travis Hunter was one of the top players coming out of high school. It's just instead of going to Florida State, he went with Deion, and then Deion's son is playing for him. Well, if he didn't have those two players, Colorado's a different team, but he did get them, and he motivates. He can still walk into a room, and if your son doesn't know who he is, you as a parent know who he is, and Deion can charm anybody. And he can these kids are going to play for Deion, not Colorado. They're going to play for Deion, and that's powerful. There is no other coach in America who could walk into a room the way he can. Not Nick Saban, not Kirby Smart, not Ryan Day, none of these coaches. They don't have the charisma. They don't have it. Prime.
Dan, I got to take issue with that. I got a coach in Ann Arbor that would stay overnight for a kicker.
But he's pretty close to that. I respected that. But he's not. He didn't have the career, and he doesn't have the charisma. Right. He's odd. He's different. He's a great coach, but he has passion. And as a parent or as a player, I want to know if you how much does this mean to you? I don't know how much it means to Belichick. I don't know how much it means to Saban. I see how much it means to Kirby Smart. I see how much it means to Harbaugh. Deion, he embodies that. And that it's just rare. It's a perfect storm. If they got blown out by TCU, how much would we care?
Right.
If they had lost to Colorado State, how much would we care? Now you got the game against Oregon. If they get blown out, how much do you care? USC the following week. Or what if they beat Oregon? What if they beat USC? Now all of a sudden, Deion, national title picture, question mark? Coach of the year, question mark?
Best coach in college football.
Yes. Who would you rather have, Saban or Deion? People need topics on these shows, and but I like Deion. I've always liked him. He's a great guest. He's fun. He's smart, and you can ask him questions, and you'll get answers. And that's all I care about. I'm not rooting for Colorado. I'm not rooting against, but I do like the storyline. It's fun.
Yeah, Dan, we would have absolutely no trouble keeping you going for another 3 hours this afternoon, but I want to be respectful of your world, knowing you just did a 3-hour show, and I think Meat Friday probably has you also filled with protein of some form.
I'm ready for a nap.
So let me tell everybody again, the book is called The Occasionally Accurate Annals of Football, the NFL's Greatest Players, Plays, Scandals, and Screw-Ups, plus stuff we totally made up. Now, there's just one more thing we'd like you to do before you go, if you don't mind, and it's a segment we do every week called Holy Discontent.
Okay.
It's time to blow off some steam. Get it off your chest. Rant about what's most bothering you.
I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
It's time for Holy Discontent.
And we just kind of give you the floor here to get off your chest something that may be just irritating you to no end in the world of sports. And maybe we've covered it already, but maybe there's still something stored away in there.
First of all, who's the voice on that?
Boy, I don't remember. That's a couple of years ago. But then we also have Frank Costanza, of course, who has to come in and do his part.
Mm. Yeah. So what do I have discontent for?
Yeah. What's irritating you?
I don't know. I think I railed on a few things here.
That's all right. If there's nothing stored up, this is really a cathartic moment to just get the steam out if you need to. And if you're all steamed out, then it's Friday afternoon. You're good.
Maybe his holy discontent is being put on the spot to have a holy.
This is a Hall of Fame broadcaster, Paul.
Yeah.
Dan lives on the spot.
But I also have 3 hours where I can get out my discontent.
That's a very good point.
It's like, when people have a podcast and they get to now express themselves.
How about the golf game? Is the golf game treating you well?
I treat it well. It doesn't treat me well, but I do have respect for it. But there's, that's on me. It's not on the game. So now at this stage, Friday afternoon, I'm good.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm good. I thought you were going to pass around the collection plate and then that would have like virtually pass around the collection
We
plate.
do that with Venmo. We'll be sending you a link.
Thank you.
shortly.
That's what I thought. I did get change out of the collection plate. I grew up
Help
going.
yourself?
Yeah. Well, I put in a 10 and I took out a 5.
That's reasonable.
I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad.
You know, in the age of digital contributions, that's happening less and less often. That's probably an old school way of getting your change back. Is the usher stands there and awkwardly looks at a moment.
Yeah, I haven't been to confession in a while.
1 for you and 2 for me.
Yeah. I haven't been to confession. I grew up around the church. I have 2 aunts who were in the convent for over 50 years. My dad's best friend was a priest, and so I had to go to church every morning when I was in grade school.
Huh.
So yeah, I'm coming back. You know, I'm coming back a little bit.
Well, the next time you're in Michigan, feel free to stop in Hopevale Church. Services at 9 and 11.
Wait, 9 and 11. Do you know that I got out of going to church? I think it might have been a 2-year period when Notre Dame football on Sunday would re-air, and they would do a truncated version of the game with Lindsey Nelson and Paul Horning. Oh. And I would say to my mom, you know what? Can I watch Notre Dame football instead of going to church?
But that is going to church for a lot of
absolutely touchdown Jesus,
it's
touchdown Jesus, and somehow she let me do it.
It's awesome.
Somehow.
That's incredible.
Well, thank you guys for having me on, and I'll say some prayers for the Lions. You don't want my prayers, by the way. You don't want those. You don't want
take all of them. We can.
No, because somebody upstairs is going, really? You're praying? No.
You think you're an ineligible receiver downfield?
Yeah, ineligible receiver downstairs to whoever's up there looking down on us right now.
There is hope for all. That's all we'll say. Seriously, Dan, cannot thank you enough.
Thank you, guys.
Show every single day, and wish I could do a sports ensemble show with the quality that you do.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. So wow. Maybe it's the ensemble that you need to work on.
I just between you and me.
Ouch. Thank you, guys. Thank you.